me. It may not be a demon that's possessed me, but if it's walking around with me during the day and speaking to me and influencing my thoughts, the day is going to come where it's going to walk in and take complete possession. Can you imagine? Every human being will be possessed either with the Spirit of God or with the spirit of the devil. And Satan is doing that for one reason. He hates Jesus Christ. And he says, I know I won't win, so what I'll do is I'll put my spirits inside of your people so that you have to fight them in order to fight me. He's trying to cause Christ as much suffering as he can. And Jesus is saying, you don't have long. Let me come in and clean that house. And I cannot tell you, when I was divorced from my wife, and even before I got married, when I was a young man and I was just living the wild life and, partying and drinking and going to rock concerts and listening to my music every day and watching pornography and guys, it's a waste of time. It does not mean anything. And it leaves you hollow and empty. And you know it does. You know it does. And I don't want to hurt anybody. So I want to be careful how I say this. But I want to tell you something. There was an event that happened to me when I was probably 19 years old. There was a girl I had met at a place I worked and liked her. Back then I wasn't a Christian, and I thought, if I'm not a Christian, you don't have to hold anything back. So I figured if I'm dating somebody, there shouldn't be anything holding us back. And this young lady had never been with anyone before. And came time for her graduation and her prom, and she asked if I would take her to her prom. I was already out of high school, so for her, I guess it was like a big deal to have somebody out of high school go to your prom. It's just the way the world thinks. That night, I broke that girl's heart, and you know what she did afterward? She cried. She was there at my apartment, and she started crying. And it's like, if I could take that night back, I would take it back 1,000,000 times. I crushed her. Not because I physically hurt her, but because she felt like, because of the peer pressure of all her friends, you're supposed to do this on prom night. And after that moment of pleasure, she was like, what have I done? That's what Adam and Eve must have felt like after taking that one bite. It's not worth it. But I can promise you something. Jesus says, I make all things new. All things. And that doesn't mean you wait to heaven to get it. That means if you have been in that situation where your heart's been broken, or where you've gone farther than you intended on going, you can get on your knees tonight and you can say, Lord, I confess this to you, and I claim your promise that if any man or woman is in Christ Jesus, you are a new creation today. Amen. And God says He'll give you back your purity. That's only God can do that. And people go, well, God can't do that. Are you kidding me? He can raise Lazarus from the dead. Making somebody a virgin again is easy. Right? That's easy. As we near the close of time, there will be, listen to these words, there will be greater and still greater external parade of heathen power. Heathen deities will manifest their signal power and will exhibit themselves before the cities of this world. I read that and I thought, wow, We're talking about pagan gods are going to appear before men. And I thought, Lord, how? But then I read the next statement. Sister White said, and this delineation has already begun to be fulfilled in her day. And I thought, okay, I'm missing something here.
Yeah.
She said this was already happening in her day. And then she said, all need wisdom carefully to search out the mystery of iniquity that figures so largely in the winding up of this earth's history. Ellen White was saying it's demons that are possessing men and women. And they will appear in front of the cities of this world. I'm going to skip through some of these. You have to forgive me. I want to show you because I want to get to the important part. Today, the mysteries of heathen worship are replaced by the secret associations and societies and seances, by the obscurities and wonders of spiritualistic mediums. These disclosures of these mediums are eagerly received by thousands who refuse to accept the light from God's Word through His Spirit. Believers in spiritualism may speak with scorn of the magicians of old, but the great deceiver laughs in triumph as they yield to his arts under a different form. Does anybody know what that is? Has anybody in here ever seen that before? Manga or anime?
I've seen something like
In America, the average age that gets caught up in this is between 18 and 40 years old. Average is 18 to 40. It's Japanese, a type of Japanese cartoon. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but I do want to emphasize all of these anime and manga are based on spiritualism, on Japanese religion, Shintoism, Buddhism. I'm going to show you just a couple of these. These are all Japanese anime that have been published by Walt Disney. A lot of people say, Walt Disney, that's family friendly. It's not family friendly. It's never been. People will say, yeah, but when Walt was alive it was. No, it wasn't. Walt Disney was a 33rd degree Freemason. He was involved in some dark stuff. Not good. We're not going to pay too much attention to that tonight. But some of the very first films that came out, Mary Poppins, they're about to release a new version of that. She was a witch. Bedknobs and Broomstick. She was a witch. Almost every one of the pop stars that are popular, name some pop stars like hip hop or dance singers or dance music. Name some pop stars. Beyonce, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Rihanna. Do you know that a lot of the pop stars that are out there, even the white ones, which I know are not necessarily as good, but even some of those white boys that can't sing, do you know that many of them got their start in the Mickey Mouse Club? What's that girl's name? Miley Cyrus. Do you know that's where she started? Have you seen her? I mean, it's like she's this pretty little innocent looking girl, and now she's went off the deep end. Britney Spears was this, attractive, young, innocent girl, went off the deep end. I mean, having to be checked into mental institutions. And do you know what happened to them at Walt Disney World? I'm not going to tell you, but it wasn't good what they were doing with children there behind the closed doors. There are spirits that are working behind the mask. And I know this is not a big issue here with the anime, but it is? Okay. Well, we'll spend just a few minutes looking at this then. You see this young girl. We have Seventh-day Adventists that have these videos in their homes. Okay? And they think it's cartoons. The parents don't even look to see what the cartoons are about. They don't sit down and watch them first before they let their young people watch them. And they have no idea. You see the girl? Do you see what's around her mouth? That's blood. Do you see what's in her left hand? A knife. Do you see what's in her right hand? That same mask that you see this attractive Japanese lady with. Often, a mask is a way to hide so that you can do what you really wouldn't do where everybody knew who you were. In the old days, they would have masquerade parties, the women would come in with something to cover their eyes, and the men, and they would hold the mask like this, and then they would go into a dark room somewhere, and everybody's like, you got the mask on. You don't have to ask, don't tell, is what it was called. A mask was so that you could do things that you would not normally do without the mask. You could act in ways that you wouldn't normally act. They call this the Inari, the Kitsune Inari. It's a spirit of the fox. Maybe you guys have that phrase over here. Ungodly men will say, man, she was a foxy woman. Have you ever heard that phrase?
Yeah.
Not by Christians, but by un-Christians. That's where the word foxy comes from. These spirits would often appear as a beautiful woman, and they would entice a man into committing fornication with them. And either in the midst of the fornication or after the fornication, they would reveal that they were really a demon. And sometimes the men were like, I don't care. That demon will empower me. This is a painting of that situation. These spirits or spirit guides were said to possess magical powers. They were known as shapeshifters. That means they could change from one form of being to another. They used the power of illusion, deception, immorality, and sensuality. Almost every one of the manga and anime, they teach mudras and mantras and spells and chi energy, homosexuality, bisexuality, pedophilia, and transgenderism. And now they've got so many different names for it, you just like, what? Really?
Yeah.
If you go back here and you look, this is an updated picture of an original anime show. Originally, the boy was almost always that old, and the girl was like this old. And he had a thing for her. He wouldn't do anything, but he lusted over her. And in this one, they actually showed, after she'd gotten a little bit bigger, he pulled the mask off. So he could reveal what his true intentions were. There are few who have any just conception of the deceptive power of spiritualism and the danger of coming under its influence. They tamper with it merely to gratify their curiosity. They have no real faith in it, and they would be filled with horror at the thought of yielding themselves to the Spirit's control. But they venture upon forbidden ground. And I hate to rush, but we've got to. I saw the rapidity with which this delusion of spiritualism was spreading. A train of cars was shown me going with the speed of lightning. The angel bade me to look carefully. I fixed my eyes upon the train, and it seemed that the whole world was on board. Then he showed me the conductor, a fair, stately person whom all the passengers looked up to in reverence. I was perplexed, and I asked my attending angel who it was. He said, "It is Satan." He has taken the world captive, and they are going with lightning speed to destruction. This delusion of spiritualism will spread, and we will have to contend with it face to face. Unless we are prepared for it, we will be ensnared and overcome. Today, Satan is seeking through every avenue possible to destroy faith in God's Word, because he knows that only through living faith can we be changed back into the image of God. Now I'm going to show you how are we on time? How do you guys feel? I mean, I won't get mad at you if you say it's okay if I go for a few more minutes. Are you guys interested? Or would you rather just go home and go sleep?
Well, we're supposed to finish our faith.
How about the young people?
8:30, please, preacher.
So like, do you think he'll really be mad? You want me to go on a little bit? Okay.
Maybe another day.
I'm going to show you a photograph, and I have to tell you before I show you the picture, because once I show you the picture, you'll read what's beside it, and the end of the story will be there. When I was training in the martial arts, I trained under one grandmaster for almost 20 years. And it got to a point where I felt like I wanted to learn some different things. I felt like I had learned everything I was going to learn where I was, and it was time for me to go on. That is not normally a comfortable thing to do if you're in the martial arts, especially if you're a disciple level. I was a 5th degree, or 5th dan in Chinese Kung Fu. In traditional Kung Fu, they don't call it dans, they just call it a disciple level. It means the next step would be what they classify as a master. And I wanted that. And I'd spent 14 years, to get black belt, black sash. And then I spent another few years working to get discipleship. And then, anyway, long story short, the day came and I said, I just need to leave this and go to another man. Well, I had my best friend, he had been training under a man for a number of years, and he took me one day to a seminar that he was giving. And I remember I was there and I was doing the things that he was teaching the other students, and he never paid any attention to me, and but I was watching him because my best friend was his disciple. And I paid close attention to everything he was doing. And I saw a power in him that I had not even seen in my first grandmaster. I'm talking about power. He came over to me at the end of the seminar, and it was outside. And he walked up to me and he said, "You're Alan's friend." He said, "Alan's told me a lot about you." And he said, "There's a reason why we met today." And he turned around and he walked off. You know what that's called? He dangled the carrot. He said, "There's a reason why we met today." And he walked away. And you know what that makes you think? You're thinking, man, that means there's something special about me? You mean, why did you even pay attention to me? And you're like, chase that rabbit or that carrot. And he knew that's what would happen. And so I started traveling about 5.5, 6 hours to train with him. And he was, he would teach me. But I could tell he was holding things back. But the reason he was holding things back was because I was already another grandmaster's disciple. And when you make a black belt in a martial art, my first grandmaster told me, he said, the ceremony tonight is more like a marriage than a promotion. He said, you don't understand that now, but you will one day. And it was a few years after that I began to understand what happens when you make black belt. You become joined spiritually with the master that promotes you. And that means that the spirits that empower him now are given permission to come into your life and empower you. Well, back then, even as a Seventh-day Adventist, I was going to church every Sabbath. But I believed the lie that, I know what they say, but that's not what it really means. I can do these things. They may say it's spiritual, but I'm not going to let it become spiritual. And the whole time I was falling right into the trap. And anyway, it got to the point where I recognized this Grand Master is waiting for me to choose. You need to divorce the old Grand Master and be mine, or go back to him, you know? Don't try to ride the fence. And I knew that this man had what I wanted, and I said, I'm just going to sever the tie to the old Grand Master that I trained under. So I started training full time as his student, and I knew he would be the one that was going to promote me to the next level, which would have been a 6th Dan or whatever, 7th Dan, and I could keep training under him. He was a 10th Dan in 2 systems of Kung Fu. 2. That's unheard of. And he was a master instructor in Chinese Qigong, which is like the healing arts. So I thought, man, I could spend the rest of my life under this guy, and I'm not going to run out of things to learn. Well, one afternoon, one day, he had invited a number of the black belts that were under him to come to his dojo, his school, and train. Because he wouldn't teach anybody except black belts. If you had students under you, you could bring them there, and he would teach them, but he wouldn't teach somebody that wasn't a black belt on their own. So he invited a handful of us black belts to come, and he trained us hard all day long. And he knew I wanted to be a master. I wanted to be a grandmaster one day. I was in it for life. He knew that. So I wasn't just paying attention to what to do, but I was paying attention on how to teach what to do. And he liked that. Now the reason why is because the devil knows this flesh wears out. And sooner or later one day, that demon that has been living in one man's body for 30, 40, 50 years, the demon's going to go, look, I got to get a younger body, because even though I can still do this magical stuff through this one, it's not going to last forever. So I'm ready to get a new one. So that Grandmaster knew, I've got to train Eric. I've got to share with him so that one day he'll be able to take over where I'm at. And we trained all day. The end of the day came, everybody is exhausted, all the men that were there, and we weren't boys. I mean, I was, 33 years old, 34, and we all were exhausted, and we thought, okay, we can go home now. And he said, why don't we get a pizza and we can sit around and watch a movie or something tonight? And you know what that meant if you're in martial arts? It means, wow, I mean, the Grand Master asked us, we're going to stay in his house tonight. That means he may let loose of some of those secrets that we really want to hear, So everybody was like, yeah, okay, that would be great. And plus, you don't say no. I mean, if the corporate president of IBM invites you over for dinner, you don't go, I really got to wash some clothes tonight. You're not going to get promoted. So everybody's like, yeah, we'll stay. So we all stayed, and we ate, and put the television on, and we're just doing small talk, and then all of a sudden it gets late. It's like 11 o'clock, 11:30, and he starts talking about conspiracy theories, like the Illuminati and Freemasons and all kinds of weird stuff. And me being as a Seventh-day Adventist, I woke up because I was like, I'm interested in this, because I knew about the Great Controversy. All the other guys were so exhausted, they were already ready to go home. And when he started talking about the conspiracy theories, you could see them. They were like, I cannot believe he's going to do this, because you can't go home. So they all sat there and they're like trying to keep their eyes open. And he just starts talking. And we go till after 12 o'clock. And they're just and you can look in their eyes and you can tell there's nobody home. Their eyes are open, but there's nobody there. And I was wide awake because I thought, man, this is cool. I like listening to this. And then he drops the bomb. Right in the middle of talking about all this stuff, he says, oh yeah, by the way, you know when we train chi, power, because after black belt, that's all there is. After third or fourth degree, I mean, there's no point even being in the martial arts if you're not going to train in energy. I mean, it's like, really? I mean, there's just not that many ways you can throw a punch or throw a kick, and everybody knows that. He said, if you guys want to know about that energy that we channel called chi, he said, look at Jimi Hendrix. Look at Eric Clapton. Look at some of the Hollywood movie stars. He said, they're using the same power that we train in the martial arts. And I was sitting there and I was like, red flags were going up. Because I was like, I know Jimi Hendrix was not a God-fearing man, and I know Eric Clapton was not a Christian. And, you know, I had been led to believe this lie that chi was scientific. It's science. It's not science. It's spirit.
Yeah.
But he told us these people are using the same power, and I was like, how? A little while after that, I went down to train with him one-on-one. And I know that I was getting close to being promoted to that next level. So I was like, I didn't want to do anything to mess up getting that next rank. And I went down to train with him, and while I was there training with him, one of the other younger black belts came running in one afternoon, and he had a big piece of artwork, and it was covered in brown paper, you know, like the brown paper bag, that rough stuff, and it had the string wrapped around it to keep it on there. He comes running in and he looked at the Grandmaster. He said, Sijo, it's done. They finished it. They finished it. And the Grandmaster looked at him and he nodded, which was his way of saying you're dismissed. And the young man left. And he went over and he unwrapped that thing, and there was this beautiful Chinese calligraphy. You know, when they do those brush, it's beautiful. I didn't know what it said, but it was beautiful. So I'm looking at it, and I looked at him, and he knew what I was thinking. And I said, okay, I'm just going to have to ask him. I said, Sijo, I said, it's beautiful. I said, what does it mean? And he looked at me, and he said, Eric, he said, the easiest way to translate this into English is, it's the devil that's in the details. That's scary. And you know what's scarier than that? You know what I heard in my head? I know he's saying that, but he doesn't really mean that. I know God said you would die, but he doesn't really mean it. You won't surely die. And I was like, he may believe that, but that's not for me. I'm not worshiping the devil. He told me straight out where the power comes from. He told me, he said, to a beginner, we tell them that chi is an internal power to make you hit harder, to make you run faster, or whatever. He said to an intermediate level, we tell them that chi is breath. That's why you do all the deep breathing exercises. He said, but at the disciple level, we tell you the truth. Chi is spirit. You have to tap into that spirit. Now I want to show you. Y'all know who this man is? Robin Williams. Everybody say, I mean, there's nothing wrong with Robin. He died. He committed suicide. And it was terrible because it wasn't him, it was the demon of suicide that took his life, that influenced his mind. This is what he said. Yeah, literally, it's like possession. All of a sudden, you're in. And because it's in front of a live audience,